Welcome back on the AM show. This is the big stories now, but our first conversation on the table is the issue of the Gadangme lands that have been in circulation for a while between the Ghana Armed Forces and the the Association of La Community, La Associations. Also, we heard John Mahama on his recent tour of the Greater Accra region, and he was promising to set up a commitment to look into this. In the studio with me for this conversation is Jeffrey Tetteh, spokesperson for Coalition of La Associations. Jeffrey, good morning, and thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you.
Right, so let's get straight into it. We saw a press statement from both the Ghana Armed Forces and the Coalition of La Associations on this issue of the GA lands. So just to establish some clarity for the conversation, let's get into the actual facts of the situation. We know that from the press releases that we've seen that there are two categories of lands involved. There's land that was acquired by the government for the Ghana Armed Forces, and there's land that was just occupied by the Ghana Armed Forces, which was not subject to the acquisition. Is this correct?
That's correct.
When did this happen?
Okay, so the lands were acquired during the colonial era. Okay, so we have the aerodrome acquisition, the anti-Amara aerodrome acquisition, and a whole lot of them. Looking at from the airport area all the way to where we call Chado now. But this particular land in contention is called the Plecho lands, and it's situated just around where the Major Mahama roundabout is. So, in fact, the military cemetery, from where the military cemetery is all the way to the Major Mahama roundabout, and then you turn towards the Air Force base, that stretch of land over there is the one in contention.
And when did this last when did the coalition petition the ministry to release some of the lands back to you?
Okay, so this has been ongoing for quite some time. I think it's taken about 15 years since we started this fight. And it's not just the coalition, it is the La Traditional Council. We are just their sons and daughters who are more or less like the ones who go and come looking into these issues. But it's actually on the auspices of the La Traditional Council. Now, the La Traditional Council's argument is that there were lands that were acquired for specific purposes, and the law says that if those lands are not being used for the purpose for which it was acquired, it will revert back to the allodial owners, in this case, the La Traditional Council. And then there are lands which does not, or is not affected by any acquisition. Those ones are automatically for the La people. Okay, but the military over the years has tried to take over the entire stretch over there. Now, people are saying that the traditional authorities are saying that, okay, give us back the land that were acquired and are not being used for the purpose for which they were acquired, as well as take your hands off those ones which were not acquired. And this argument.
All these lands are in the airport east area?
Exactly.
The
Plecho area. We call the place Plecho. Sometimes the military churns out some falsehoods and they say it is Bema Camp lands, but that is not Bema Camp lands. When you go into history and you look at the records, we know exactly where Bema Camp is. So that is not Bema Camp lands. Okay, so there has been series of events, correspondence, and issues going up. We've gone to court. There's been several judgments on this particular land dating back to somewhere around 2013 thereabout, when the then Deputy Attorney General Dominic Ayine even stated that those lands are not military lands. It should be given to the La people. Now, fast forward a few years back, I think it's stated in this press release. Now, those lands, the then Minister for Lands, Honorable Asuma Cheme, okay, he looked at the entire 350 acres of land and said that, okay, he set up a committee actually, and the committee determined that 250 acres of those lands should be given to the La people and 75 be given to the military.
When did he say this and where, and who was present?
This was in November 2020. November 2020. Now, present were, in fact, there was a tripartite committee that was formed, made up of the La Traditional Council, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, and then the Ghana Armed Forces. So they worked over a period of time and came to that conclusion that 250 acres of those lands should be given to the La people, and then 75 acres should be given to the Ghana Armed Forces. So the military were part of that decision that was taken. Now, immediately after the elections in 2020.
Wait, let's take it step by step because we are looking for clarity. This tripartite committee that you're talking about, that meeting, was it an agreement? Was that a conclusion of the meeting that 250 acres of the land should be given back to the people? And was the military, the representation of the Ghana Armed Forces, the representative for the Association of LASTU, and the ministry, did you all conclude on this issue that this is the way forward?
Yes, that was the conclusion, and it was done.
Do you have documents to prove this?
In fact, there was at the end of their deliberations. Okay, there was a document that came out that said that the 250 acres has been given to the La people, and this document was signed by the minister, Honorable Asuma Chemi. Okay, so after that, the La people decided to go onto their portion of the land and then work on the land, and then the armed forces came in and, using brute force, beat up people, including media personnel who were there to cover the event, because when the La people were going there, we decided to take the media there. We've been making noise over that for a long time. We've been calling press conferences, issuing statements. So it was fair that we bring back the media so they know that the land has been given to us. We even erected a signpost to thank the president. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving us our land. And the Ghana Armed Forces personnel came and then destroyed, they pulled down the image of the president on the billboard. They pulled it down. And it was serious. Now, fast forward, after they beat the people up, the issue came to the current Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, that's Honorable Abu Jinapor. We once met him at the Lands Ministry, at the Lands Commission. And that was where he decided that he was going to set up another committee because he didn't want to tie his hands with what his predecessor had done. So he decided to form a new committee. Now, the new committee was made up of the same groups, the Ghana Armed Forces, because they were stakeholders, the La Traditional Council, and then the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Now, they worked up to 2022, somewhere around August, and came to a conclusion. This time around, they gave the people of La only 114.52 acres. 114.52 acres.
Okay.
A huge reduction from 250. But the people of La took that in good faith because the argument was that the government, through the military, needed some more lands to, expand. And being good landlords, and we have given out lands to the government in previous administrations, even during the colonial era, we decided that, okay, if government is going to use the land for national purpose, we are going to give it out.
But what was your intended purpose for the land that you want to reclaim? Out of the 250 acres of land that was agreed to be returned to you, the 114, what was the intended purpose? What are you going to use those lands for?
We are this La people, and we have our traditional authorities. Whatever they want to use the land for, probably they want to do some investments that will benefit the people. Because you see, when you look at La, okay, we've given out lands to government. I think we have contributed lands more than any other township in this country to national development. And if I want to stay from the South La Estates, from the Cantonment Estates, Laboni, University of Ghana, we talk about what was acquired for dairy farms, we talk about the trade fair, we talk about the Bema camp itself, a whole lot that we have given out. So we need this one to also use for some development purposes, which was intended to benefit our people.
And are you saying that you're only looking to get these lands back only because the government or the Ghana Armed Forces is not actually using it for anything? Or they use it, you just want it back?
These are bare lands, virgin lands.
Maybe lands, they train there. It's the military. They have their own...
They don't do anything. We know our forefathers used to cultivate okra and watermelon on those lands, okay? And up till today, there are people there who still cultivate okra. There has been no construction there. The armed forces has done absolutely nothing there.
Are you saying these lands are close to the armed forces, the barracks, the Bema camp areas?
Bema camp.
Right?
Well, let me say it's not too far from Bema camp.
Right.
It's not too far from Bema camp, but...
So there's a possibility that the lands are being used for some military purposes.
The lands are not being used. And our argument is that when you enter Bema camp itself, there are pockets of lands which are not being used. So if the military wants to use land, they have land enough land they can utilize within Burma camp. Now, our argument is even, let me bring you back to why we issued this press statement. Now, somewhere last year, government had actually given people a lease on that land, 114.52 acres. Government has granted us a lease. There's a letter from the presidency, there are correspondence from the Ghana Armed Forces to the La Traditional Council telling us that, yes, they acknowledge. In fact, there was a visit to the La Traditional Council by the military hierarchy, and present at that meeting, at that visit, was the Major General Ando, NP Ando, who was then the Chief of Staff. We also had Major General Oseusu, who is currently the Chief of Staff. We had Brigadier General Amu Abuachi, who was part of that tripartite committee that deliberated on the lands issue. And their visit to the Traditional Council was to acknowledge that the land belongs to the La people and that they wanted to see how we can work together, and then the La people will coexist with them. Right. That's why they came there. But after we went there to perform some customary rites to open the way for us to do our constructions there, the military, 1 week later, issued a statement and said that they are not aware that land has been given to us.
Hold on. Let's move step by step.
Okay.
Now, out of that 250 acres of land, you're saying that the military actually gave you back 114 acres.
It was government that gave us.
Government gave it back, and they didn't contend over that. Those
they did
lands.
not contend over it.
Great.
In fact, let me.
So what you're looking for, this reclamation ceremony that you conducted.
Yeah.
Was it on the 114 acres of land or the entire 250 acres of land, which only 114 had been cleared for you?
We have admitted that government needed part of the land for the military use, so we accepted the 114.
Okay.
And so our customs we performed was on the 114 acres. We are not even asking for
the remaining.
Yes. We took only the 114 acres. And even the 114 acres that's been given to, the military is still preventing us from going onto our land to work on it. Look, this is a letter from the Office of the President, okay? It's dated 27th April 2022, addressed to the Honorable Minister, that's Minister of Lands, and it says, request for executive approval in respect of La Lands. I refer to your letter dated 21st March 2022 with reference number DB 95/110/02 in respect of the above subject matter. The President has granted approval for the taking of appropriate measures to release portions of the lands to the last two and to acquire other portions of the lands in accordance with the terms contained in the letter under reference. I shall be grateful if you could take requisite action on the above. It's signed by Nana Bidietu Asante. Okay, this is from the Office of the President. Okay, and I mean, the President has given approval. Now, after that, the President has granted last two a lease on the 114 acres of land. You can see,
and that is where you performed your reclamation ceremony. Okay,
and now. After that, the military has sworn not to allow us. And they said that they are not aware. And they said that there is still ongoing negotiations.
They're saying that there's a committee that was set up. You're saying that after the clarity that was, you gained from reclamation, lands to be returned to you, lands that are not being used to be returned to the pre-acquisition owners, right? But after that, things changed when there was a change in leadership, right? When Abu Jinapor assumed office.
Yes.
So there was obviously a new committee that was set up. And this new committee, according to the statements released by the Ghana Armed Forces, they've not concluded on this issue yet.
So this thing I gave to you is based on the work the new committee has done. And the new committee concluded their deliberations as far back as August 2022. So it is based on their recommendations that the 114 was released to us instead of 250. You understand? So they had concluded their work. Now, what the Ghana Armed Forces is doing is misleading their rank and file. They are misleading the general public, and they are lying to the people. And I've mentioned names of people who are involved. You can call their PR department and find out from them. If they are not aware of all these things, they are very much aware. But for whatever reasons we don't know, they are preventing the people of land.
But in your own statements, I believe that's a copy you have with you, you did acknowledge that it might be possible that there's still ongoing work by the committee.
How
do we tally those two?
No, it is not about ongoing work.
Okay.
after the committee has sealed their work, it's been signed. The president has given approval, and actually a lease has been granted to the La people. Once the lease is granted, the committee has done their work.
But you acknowledge that there could be work ongoing.
What we said was that the military is still trying to convince the minister, for whatever reasons we don't know, to maybe stop us from taking our land. That is what we are talking about. But it's not about the committee doing its work. It's the military that is trying to use some backdoor approach to now maybe hold their minister to. And you see, Honorable Dominic Nitiwu, who is the Minister of Defense, is aware of this. When he took office, in fact, the coalition of associations visited him to deliberate with him over these issues. He's aware. He told us then that he knows that this land should belong to the La people. It belongs to the La people. So we are surprised that all of a sudden he, as the minister, who has ultimate responsibility over the armed forces as the minister, is not saying anything about this issue.
Ghana, we live in a democracy.
Yes.
And the rule of law works.
Yes.
Where does the judiciary stand in all of this?
You see,
because this is between you, coalition of law associations, and the Ghana Armed Forces.
All right.
Have you gone to court? Have you sought any judicial intervention?
So the reason why we are not going to court currently is that previously, under the Mahama administration, I mentioned Dominic Ayine, who was then the Deputy Attorney General. We had gone to court. The court had made a pronouncement that the land belongs to the La people, and then the military refused, even injunctions that
How did they refuse?
They are disrespecting the rule of law.
Okay.
It's the Ghana forces that's disrespecting the rule of law. And they have done everything possible to ensure that, you know, when you are going to serve them and you are entering the army barracks and they know you are a bailiff and they have guns and they prevent you, when we live in a democracy. So wherein lies the discipline we have known the military for? Where is it? They have not thrown the discipline we know them for into the gutters. And they are disrespecting every aspect of our democracy. Now they live in a banana state, so they do what they like. And we don't want it to get to that point. What they are doing now is going to breed chaos. That's exactly what they are doing. Because we want to coexist with the military peacefully. You understand? And we don't want a situation where we are going to have any tussle with anybody in uniform. They are supposed to protect us. In fact, by virtue of the fact that the military has their headquarters in La, we feel that we are the most secured people in this country. Bema camp within La, we are the most secured people. But you see, for us, we don't have the cocoa, we don't have the gold. All we have is our lands. And so if you are taking our lands from us, we see it like you are sucking the blood out of us. And that is where we are saying, I am a youth leader. I may restrain, I may try to make my people, prevent them from taking any action that would be against the law. But when I am asleep, I don't know what some of our people will do. And that's what we want to prevent. And so we are asking the president, as the commander-in-chief, to call his people to order. He has ultimate responsibility over the armed forces.
But he is not a judge. My question is, this is obviously something that should be resolved in court. Land disputes are resolved in court. If you're trying amicably and it's not working, and the military is saying that they're also committed to a peaceful resolution of this matter, what they take exception to, per their statement, is the premature announcement of these lands that you say you've reclaimed. So why don't you put this issue to court again after the first order or the first judgments have been you say it's been disrespect. They are disrespecting the order, right?
Yes.
So why don't you seek appeal? Why don't you go back and ensure that the rule of law is guiding how you actually navigate this issue?
I am saying that the court has made pronouncements before in the past and the army has refused to respect it.
So why don't you go back?
You go back and they will still disrespect. So now we are using the executive arm of government to talk to them. And that's how come a committee was set up and they participated in the deliberation. You see, that's where my pain is. They sat in the deliberations, participated throughout the deliberations, and this thing started way back in 2017. They sat through the deliberations all the way up till now.
Would you say you've been patient enough?
We've been too patient.
They are calling it premature.
We've been too patient, okay? And because we don't want our community to go up in flames, we don't want to take actions that would make us seem as being bad people, we continue to be patient and we are asking the appropriate authorities to take action. Because if those appropriate authorities do not take the necessary actions, and anything untoward happens, who is to blame?
What are you calling appropriate action?
Appropriate action is to call the military to order and tell them that this land doesn't belong to you. We've given you, look, from 350, okay, we were giving 250. We were giving 75.
There's a remaining
now,
138 or so.
Now, we've rather been given 114, and the remainder of the 350 has been given to the military. You've gotten more than we have gotten, the rightful owners of the land. We have gotten less, and still you don't want to allow us have access to our land. This is too bad.
What's the way forward?
The way forward is that we have an executive president. So we want to use this forum to ask the president, as the commander-in-chief, we appeal to his office as the commander-in-chief. He can call the Minister of Defense, he can call the Chief of Defense Staff and tell them that I have used my executive powers to grant this lease to the La people. Leave it and let them have their lands. Simple. So we are appealing to the president.
If this appeal is not heeded,
we will continue our agitations. And I'm sure, like I said, maybe I wouldn't want it that way, but it will be a recipe for chaos. Because when people start rising up, and it will not be just against the military, it will be against government, the government of the day, whichever government is in power at any point in time, it will be against them. We started our demonstrations in 2016 when President Mahama was in power. We've agitated over these same lands up till now. And yes, there's going to be an election. If no action is taken, we will continue our fight. The people of La are very resilient. We wouldn't stop. We are persistent too. We will continue to fight for this our land because, like I said, it is our bloodline. That is what our forebears bequeathed to us, and we are not going to let it go.
So I see one of two things happening. Either the president actually heeds your cry and says, take back your land because you are the pre-acquisition owners, or because the government actually has the rights to acquire lands for state purposes or national purposes. They could say they are reclaiming these lands, they are reacquiring these lands for government issues, for the Ghana Armed Forces. And then what do you do then?
So if you listen to the letter I read from the presidency.
I'm saying that this did not work. Court did not work.
This is something that
you have a lease that they are not adhering to. You went to court, there was an order, there was a judgment. You said they are not adhering to that either. So what if this route that you're taking, asking the president to intervene, what if his way is saying that, well, hold on for a while. The Ghana Armed Forces still has use for this land, or these 250 or 136 acres of land. What then do you do?
So the argument still is, if the Ghana Armed Forces needs land for further development, there are pockets of land within Bema Camp and other places where they can use. When you go to, Bondase area, okay, they have large tracts of lands they can use. In any case, you see, by international convention, the military is not even supposed to be sited within civilian population. But it is only here you find a place like Bema Camp sitting right at the heart.
Is that not the reason why, for security purposes, that perhaps they are not disclosing what they intended, what they actually using the land for?
We can still have security.
Yeah.
If the nation wants to protect the people of La, we can still have that security. If they want to protect the citizenry, we can still have that security. The police are there, and we can maintain some of the military people at their base. But we are not even saying that they should leave. What we are saying is that if they need land to further develop, they have pockets of land. In any case, when you go to Bema Camp now, we've gone from developing horizontal to vertical. So a small piece of land can be developed vertically, and they can have a lot of space in there.
Right.
So they should concentrate within Bema Camp, and then the remainder of the land has been given to them at Plechu, and then leave the 114 acres of land for the people of La.
So that's all you're fighting for, the 114 acres, which is just a part of the original 250 acres that was given back to you. All right. We have to wrap this up, but I'm curious, when was the last time you had any kind of interaction with the military, with Ghana Armed Forces, aside this press statements that they released? When was your last encounter with them?
I think the last encounter was around either October or November, where the Traditional Council had a meeting with them at Bema Camp. Yes, that was then.
What was the outcome of that?
You see, they keep they will tell you they will get back to you, and they never will. That's their modus operandi. And so they try to play the delay tactics. And you see, this land we are talking about, when first the government decided to give it to us under Asuma Chireme, immediately the military head, after they have been part of the deliberations, then they started some special developments within, just to cover up the land. So that's when they built something like a warehouse just close to the cemetery. They built some chalets. I don't know whether they are quarters. They built around the Air Force base. So they wanted to just build within the spaces and just to cover up the place. And that was when we raised alarms and stopped them. As we speak now,
I still maintain that the military cannot disclose the exact purposes of these lands or what they do with them to you.
So they were part of the team that did the demarcation. As we speak now, there are pillars there and they were part of it. They wrote to us and the letter is there. They wrote to us that they have set a date for us and their people to go and do the demarcation because they've acknowledged government has given the land to us. And I have the letter right here. Now we went with them, we mounted the pillars. This is for La. They were part of it. The pillars were mounted. The pillars are still there. Anybody can go and verify.
My final question to you. Do you think that they're refusing to give you back these lands for their own private use or it's still for national purpose?
Well,
why do you think they're holding back?
Well,
do you think that they want to...
I don't want to say for private use. We know within the Chado area, there are some areas which were previously supposed to be part of this land, which has been occupied by some individuals. We know, okay? But we don't even want to go there because we've had issues with those things.
So the lands are being occupied by private individuals?
Not this particular 114 we are talking about. Okay. Not even part of the
ones that you're fighting
but
for.
They have previously occupied
acres of land.
Yes.
That you want back from
that
the
land is bare. It's bare. There's nothing going on there. It's bare. So we want them to leave the land for the La people. We give out land for national development. So if we need the land back, it should be given to us, especially those ones that were not part of the acquisition.
They were just occupied.
They were just occupied.
Any final words before?
Like I said, we are appealing to the office of the president to take action. That's what we are looking for.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey Tetteh, spokesperson for the coalition of La associations on the issue of the Ghana Armed Forces land disputes between them and the La Association. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll continue the big stories. Benjamin Akakpo's AM exclusive is standing by. We'll be right back.